Welcome everybody to tonight's planning meeting. Have we got anybody speaking in a public session? No? Okay, thank you. Right, so apologies for absence.
From Councillor Try.
Thank you. And hi, Carolyn.
Hello again. I wasn't sure how long the last meeting was going to stop, so I've just gone and organised a bit of stuff.
That's fine. Right, item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any? No. Thank you. Item 3, minutes. Receive and agree the minutes. Are we happy to receive those from the 30th of November?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan, Vela Velsby Plan. A verbal report from Paul on the knowledge arc and why they withdrew the Shire Council. Over to you, Paul.
I'm afraid I put the verbal update on here optimistically. I still haven't got that information back from them. I do know who I'm going to be getting it from. We will be getting feedback, so hopefully for the next meeting we'll have that.
Okay, thank you. Robin.
Well, if you were so fortunate to receive it before we next meet, because it was quite an important question, please could you circulate it to the members to read before the meetings, because it was a rather testing question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We do need to understand their logic.
Definitely. Yeah, Paul can do that. Thank you. Okay, so 4.2. To note the consultation started on the 15th of December, runs until 9th of Feb. We'll consider it fully at the January meeting. Would anybody like to say anything on this? No? Okay, we'll talk about more fully in January. Item 5 is action reports.
Chair, can I just, sorry, just back to 4.2. Sorry, yes. I took me a while to unplug myself. Okay. Should we agree a process by which we're going to do this? Is it worth each of us thinking of some answers before and bringing those with us, submitting it perhaps by email? So we got, otherwise doing it point by point may take quite a while. I'm just wondering what the best way of doing it might be.
Okay, members' thoughts on that, Robin?
I've just opened it and it runs into 11, 12, 14 points, and every one of those will be 10 or 50 pages. Unless we define areas within this report, saying come back with what you want probably isn't going to help. What we need to do is to define those areas for us, which actually we can comment on, which are the areas which are related to Buckingham, because many of the stuff in this are related to Longville, related to stuff, and some of it we wouldn't be commenting on. I haven't read it in its entirety, but the areas which we remember were never included in the previous consultation never made it because Councillor Hirons and I think Councillor Cole were attending those meetings, and we never got to discuss affordable housing. It never made its way in. And they did a good job of representing our interests at all those meetings. They attended them and waiting to be consulted on it, and we were never consulted on it. And if that's not in here, this consultation would be flawed from the onset, because we made really good representations, which those two councillors led on our behalf at those meetings and gave a lot of their time to that. I think they sat there and it was not considered. So if that's not in there, that will be one of our first criticisms of the consultation, that you've then again missed affordable housing. I have a prejudice in this, being the only council who tried to amend the Vale plan and get them to put 35% in it. I also tried to amend it to take out Osier Way, and obviously I was defeated. I was even asked whether it was legal for me to amend an open planning meeting at the time, but it was legal, as Bill Ashton reminded them I could do that. But so affordable housing was voted down as an amendment at 35 then. So if it hasn't made the consultation, which was Buckingham Town Council's primary objective, that would be missing, and that's important.
So are you proposing anything there, Robin?
I said that we need a guideline around the areas which represent Buckingham. And
okay.
and we had two councillors who gave pretty much most of a
Yeah.
month of their life to this.
Yeah, you've gone over that. Yeah. John.
Yeah, I mean, I just clicked onto the page myself and Luminec. You know, just clicking on any of the links brings up a whole heap of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, to my mind, this is like a sort of, you know, a 102-page terms and conditions. No one never is going to read it, kind of thing, are they?
Yeah.
I wonder whether, picking up on what Robin's saying, we should simply write to the Buckinghamshire Council and say, look, can you give us a clue? You know, which are the bits that are relevant to us? Because at the moment, it's more or less impenetrable unless you want to spend a week going through it. Or should we ask, you know, Sheena to have a look at it herself? She has the knowledge and the wit to do this. Maybe we should be advised by her. But I think first we should go to Buckinghamshire Council. It's a bit like looking at the changes of plans on the Tindrick Road that Catherine sort of poured over for hours because it never provided the glossary. You know, what has actually changed and where's that list? Because they should have it. I mean, they've done this before. If something changes, there should be a log of what's changed. You know, that's good project management. I know, I forget the name of the document, but any project requires that kind of configuration control, it's called. So where's the configuration control document that will identify the main changes that have been made? And then I would suggest that we then ask Sheena to browse through that to pull out the things that we need to be talking about.
Okay. I mean, the only difficulty is, well, no, I suppose we've got, when does it finish? 9th of February. Yeah, because I was worried about her doing it over Christmas if it was a January finish. But all right, what do members? Oh, Paul, sorry.
Yeah, I'm thinking out loud. Obviously, Sheena's already under quite a lot of pressure to get the evidence base and the survey going for our neighbourhood plan refresh, and this is quite a tight timescale. So I think somehow between us, we need to be quite smart in terms of members having a look through and identify if there's anything you do want to say or anything that stands out or that you'd like to put what you think your views would be and get those back to us. That would be really helpful. We'll certainly go through it. I'll go through it and Sheena will have a look. And we'll work with Catherine to work out what we might be able to bring back to the next planning. Obviously, with Christmas about to start and other things going on, it's a really tight timescale. So anything we can do together rather than wait for each other to start looking at it would be really helpful. I know that's not a very clear answer.
No, you're echoing my concerns with putting too much work on Sheena, to be quite honest. I mean, I just clicked on one of them, E5 development outside town centres, and it has got deleted and then a sentence, and it's got inserted, and then it's all in green, then it's got it deleted is in an orangey kind of colour. So they do actually have what has been changed in here, if that's helpful at all to members. Mark, is that your hand up or were you just... No. Okay. Robin?
Well, listening to John and yourself and the town clerk, we have a new person taking over in planning, doing the Vale area of this plan, and most of these changes to the Vale plan are under his responsibility now. And I must confess, the officer's name's not got into my conscious memory at the moment. There's no insult to him. And it also does mention glossary in it, which John mentioned. As he said glossary, I looked at it and it said a glossary. So I think we write to the head of strategic planning and we ask him to give us a steer on those elements that he knows applies to the Buckingham neighbourhood plan and the areas which apply to housing. And maybe something might come back from him because he will be doing this all the while. So he'd be the person who's fingertip control on this, and you think he could give us a steer as well as I'm happy to look at those bits, but I really don't want to spend Christmas trawling through this. I've done so much reading in the past 12 months of different documents and reports. As important as this, spending Christmas trawling through this, trying to be to identify the areas might not be the most constructive thing. So we need to be signposted, and I don't think it's unreasonable to ask him to be signposted, do you?
I don't think it's harmful to ask a question, certainly not. But I also take on board Paul's comments that, you know, we have got a fairly tight time limit here. So if we can go through this ourselves, I agree with you, Robin. I don't want to be wasting any time looking through something that might not apply to Buckingham, but I also wouldn't want to miss anything that applies to Buckingham. And I think that's what we've got to focus on here, is that this is going to affect our residents for a long time to come. So if we don't do due diligence now, we're failing them.
Oh, I totally concur, but
Yeah,
due diligence and falling asleep reading a report, you know, we won't be doing due diligence because we'll run out of energy. I mean, I could go and ask him myself, but I'm suggesting that we ask him.
We can.
But I'm not the town council. That's why I'm suggesting we ask the town.
No, we can. Yeah, but you can ask as well.
At least he won't be working on COVID at the moment, will he?
Just a thought, but for some of you who've got tablets, it does, well, a lot of them do anyway. It has got a speak function, so you don't always have to read anything. You could listen to it. Okay, so are we happy to go with the suggestions that Robin said? We contact the planning department and ask them for a steer, but also that we look through this document ourselves. And, you know, I think we need to take on board that responsibility. Happy? Yep. Thank you.
By saying that, Chairman, I'm conscious of the amount of hours that two councillors put into this.
Yeah, I do get that, but then somebody did suggest perhaps asking Sheena to do it all. So we're a group of what, 9 or 10.
Yeah, you know, that's why I'm trying to do that.
No, that's why I'm suggesting that I think we all need to take that on board.
Fine.
Thank you. All right, our next one is action reports, Appendix A. Would anybody like to talk on anything to do with Appendix A? Mark.
Yeah, Tinjwick Road roundabout signage. I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Councillor Cole reports the cemetery has been taped over. That's not on the 0422, which is what I've been drawing attention to. It's a sign in Tinjwick Road, right by the new housing development, has had black tape put over it, but the two signs on the A422 are still indicating that the cemetery is off that roundabout on the Gorcott side.
Yeah. Can I just ask Paul, was it our team that taped over, or was it the Shire Council?
No, it was the Highway Authority.
And we can't tape it over ourselves, it has to be them?
Yeah.
Okay. Thought I'd ask. Robin?
Just to draw yourself to attention to the written question that was put at Cabinet, and we're waiting for the minutes of the written answer to the question from the last meeting. So that was put in there. That was put into the last council. It's on the action reports, 7/20, Chairman. And that was done. That written question was put in to Cabinet. You can hear the response on the webcast, or you can wait for the written response. One of the things which was quite interesting in the verbal response, it'll be interesting to see where it makes its way to the written response, was the response about the fact that everywhere else in Buckinghamshire's getting 15% of SIL.
Yeah.
And of course, the Vale plan, which we've just discussed, didn't, in its infinite wisdom, consider putting SIL into it. So it's left us, because we've got a neighbourhood plan, it's left us short of the pennies. We would be getting, if the Vale plan got passed tomorrow and SIL had been attached to it, we would have been getting 15% of SIL contributions to us as a neighbourhood plan, which they are getting in areas which have gotten made neighbourhood plan in other parts of the Buckinghamshire. So Councillor White did us a kindness by raising that in the meeting, which brought to the questions. Whereas I just say, can we bring the written response back to the meeting rather than me premise my interest in the points which were raised? But you can go watch the meeting and see the response. To be fair to Councillor White, he gave a very thorough response.
Well, I actually put the webcast link on a conversation that myself, John, and some other people were having on his Facebook group, and a resident asked about Section 106. So I answered the question, but also linked your webcast to it. And I did it at the place where you asked your question, and then it went on from there that Warren then spoke. So everybody who's read that will have seen his reply. So yeah. Does anybody else want to talk about anything else on the action list? Nope. And either Paul or Nina, could you make sure that the written minutes come back to the annex meeting from the webcast, the meeting that Robin was talking about? I'll give you the information. Thank you. Okay. Right, we have got 5.1. Receive a verbal update from Paul on a submission to list GP surgeries as community assets. Over to you, Paul.
I haven't received any response yet.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to talk about that? No. Okay. 5.2.
Robin had a hand then.
Sorry, Robin.
Just how long was the response sent, and how long are we waiting for that response?
There is a standard response time. I can't remember how much it is actually, but I'll.
So are they within time to respond to us, or is it late?
No, they're within time.
That's all right. That's answered the question. Thank you, Town Clerk.
Okay. 5.2. Receive a report from Councillor Harvey on the Freedom of Information request on the land at Walnut Drive. Over to you, John.
It was sent 21 working days ago. I have yet to receive a response, which means that currently the Buckinghamshire Council are in breach of the Freedom of Information Act, because they should have responded by now. So I will chase them tomorrow.
Thank you very much for that. Can I just ask, Paul probably know, is there any change on their timeline because of COVID?
Well, legally, no, although I suspect they may well require more time, especially given people not being in the office and communication slowing down.
Yeah.
And it's now about to be Christmas, so I'd be surprised if anything happened this side of January. Yeah,
that's what I fear. Robin.
Two things, Chairman. One is, if the Town Clerk, I gave the Town Clerk and the planning clerk a copy of my responses to my questions around the element into whether it went to strategic development or the local area planning committee. I don't know whether that's been circulated. I think those responses should be circulated, because I was hoping that we could compare Councillor Harvey's freedom of information request with those responses. And if it gives Councillor Harvey any comfort, I raised a question about the South Bucks / Wickham waste refuge contract, and it took me a lot longer than you're waiting till I got the full document, which was 750 pages, which was all redacted. So if it comes back to you how that document come to me, Councillor Harvey, there'll be a lot of redactions in there, so be prepared for a lot of black ink.
Well, let's hope there's not. Okay. Right, thanks for that, John. Right, on to planning applications. So you would have had Appendix B, and can we minute our thanks as usual to Catherine for a wonderful report. Thank you, Catherine.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, so 6.1, we've 1, 2 and 3, it's Tesco stores, but it's to do with the McDonald's signage and some changes. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Paul?
I think, in fact, they're just making it smaller and cheaper. It's really in a nutshell what they're doing. I don't really have any particular problem. We don't necessarily need a 2-story McDonald's in Buckingham, I don't think. I don't think it's really going to affect everybody's livelihood or anything. The only thing that I am concerned about is Catherine, with her usual accuracy, noted that in the initial planning one, it really specified all the materials to be used. This one, it doesn't. It's obviously sort of, you know, why spend a lot of money when we can get away with something cheapo? And it looks to me as if this is just something about being cheap. Now, in theory, we don't mind, but of course, if it isn't built to a good standard, after a few years it'll get rather tatty, and I'm not sure quite how McDonald's work, whether they're one of these franchisees, so it depends on, you know, who's going to pay for bringing it up to scratch, and the danger is it won't, and we don't really want it looking tatty. So I'd like just a note. So I'm quite having no objection, but a note saying we would like to make sure that you are going to review the materials used in this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, because they haven't listed what materials they're going to be using. So you're absolutely right to raise that. Thank you. Has anybody else got any comments on this? Oh, sorry, John. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 points really. One is I note with great sadness that all those wonderful trees that currently line the main road into the car park are going to be removed. And I just wondered if there's any way in which McDonald's, being a green organisation, shall we say, would like to actually uproot the trees and maybe transplant them somewhere else. I'm sure we could find space for them, maybe in one of our parks of the town council. So I think it's worth asking the question. I think we'll probably be told, no, that's going to be too expensive or whatever, or impossible to do. But if there's any way in which those trees as structures can be saved, I would like to encourage that. The second point I'd like to raise is on page 3, where it says boundary treatment. There was going to be a 1.8 metre perimeter fence. They've now discarded that, and they're replacing it with a 1.2 metre, a 4-foot fence, which is basically, you know, a few runners and a bit of mesh. So everybody from the schools and wherever else will be running up that hill and leaping over the fence, creating hazards next to the roundabout of the bypass, making the whole area rather messy because it will just get chopped up by people walking up there, and I think creates a real hazard. And the reason they put the fence in was that they were mindful that if they didn't do that, they could be culpable by creating an unsafe access to their restaurant. So I guess my question back to the developers are you happy now to be creating an unsafe access point, because there could be litigation coming your way when young people are leaping over the fence, getting injured, or creating slides down to the traffic on the bypass? I still think they should be encouraging the people who want to visit their establishment either to put up a proper path, and there is scope to put up a proper path from the roundabout. There's a slope there that would be probably even accessible for a wheelchair, that could be turned into a proper access point, in which case, great, do that. Or if you don't want to do that, put up a proper blooming fence and it will come in the safe way off the London road.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that, because even going back to your first point about the trees, when they came to one of our meetings, they were quite proud of themselves, letting us know about their paper straws, and they're not using plastic, and very proud of their recycling and reusing nature that they'd got into more recently. So yeah, it's sad to see all those trees being removed now. On your second point, it was through them coming to our meetings where we told them exactly that. Young people are going up the hill from the roundabout, cutting through, and they agreed they'd look at it because it could be a safety issue. That is why they put in the high fence originally. So I too was surprised to then see a 4-foot fence being put in the plans. You know, if I wasn't, if I didn't have access issues, I could probably leap over it, and I'm only 5'3". So, okay, so let's take your first one first. What do members think about the trees? And then we'll go on to the second point. Can I just take Carolyn quickly first, Robin, because she had her hand up first. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Read the trees. What an excellent suggestion from John Harvey there. And if it can be done, please ask the question. I doubt it. They are quite large, and they are, more importantly, they've been their roots will be very restricted because of the tarmac that's around them. So I suspect it will not be possible. They are replacing them with some quite good-looking hornbeams, which will be of a mature standard. So it's something, but it's, yeah, I agree, replacing trees is never the ideal solution. On the fence, it actually is reinforced quite a lot with greenery, both trees and large shrubs. And amongst those large shrubs, which I studied quite closely, is berberis. I don't know how familiar everyone is with berberis, but it's extremely sharp. The thorns would get through anybody very quickly. That's not to say that people won't try. They will. And it's going to be quite a bit of a carnage until they actually manage to make a path through it. But yes, it would be so sensible to create a proper access there. And perhaps we can suggest that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Just to prove our meetings are interactive, somebody's just sent me a message saying the Shell garage is going to be very full to overflowing presently, as the sewage is just went in there and couldn't get exit the usual way. It absolutely stinks. No, we haven't talked about the drainage and the sewage around there. It's clearly working very well at the moment, and perhaps we did comment on it earlier, how that all works around there. But if there's problems with drainage and sewage in that area, having a new contribution to it, surely councillors should consider the implications of that. Obviously I'm going to have to follow this up later, but sewage on the road, and we had those problems earlier of the drainage and the sewage. Do you recall we managed to get them to finally do the drainage under the bypass?
Yeah.
So we know that there's problems in that area.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to go and look and see where it's flowing from, but it's obviously flowing across the road at the moment.
Okay. All right. Catherine had her hand up.
There is quite a comprehensive document with this application on what they're doing about the drainage. They're making an extra attenuation tank. They're putting a new pump in a different place. And the Suds lady seems to be quite satisfied with what additional arrangements are being made, though it will still flow, surface water will still flow into the ditch on London Road.
All right, so
thank you for that.
So trees, are we going to ask McDonald's if they can relocate the trees if possible, because we've already lost so many?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ask.
And whether they would consider putting in an accessible entrance ramp, whatever, for off the bypass, instead of having a fence or short fence, 4-foot fence. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, but otherwise we've got no objections to this one. Right, so our next one is site.
Chairman, you just recalled my abstention from it.
Sorry, yeah, Nina, Robin will be abstaining from all of the plan applications that we've got. Thank you.
That just saves me saying it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So item 6.4, site the former 61 Morton Road. Do members have any thoughts on this application? I know there's still issues on the parking, that they think that they can get 3 cars in and we know that Morton Road is a very busy road, buses, and it's near the corner, so that's still an issue. In my opinion, it's still an issue. John?
Yeah, I would agree with it. I think they haven't done anything about that at all. They need to think about some solution to that. I think. I mean, there are solutions available. I knew of a house in a village which I used to go to in North Cornwall, where there was a round table, so that the car would drive in, and then the table would then turn around so it could come out forwards. There are mechanics by which this can be done, and I think that would be a much better way of sorting this out. Yes, there are one or two other properties on that same road where it isn't the way we'd like it to be, but they were there a long time ago. This is a new property, and if we can present cars backing out onto the main A road on a very difficult corner anyway, that surely is a good thing. So I would say ask them to look again at how to make that possible, and there is engineering solutions available.
Thank you for that. Right, Mark and then Paul.
Screen's frozen.
No, you're there. We can hear you.
Oh dear.
Mark, we can hear you.
We can see and hear you, Mark.
Oh, now he's gone. Oh. Mark, we can see and hear you.
Well, I don't know that we can now. I think he's frozen.
All right, Paul, do you want to take it?
Yeah,
this
I just like to point out as well. I think we ought to point out, because they obviously don't seem to be realised down in Aylesbury, that in fact they have recently given a lot of planning approvals just within about 100 metres of this development, all of which displace parking onto the main road, mean that you have to go past it, make more traffic. And I don't know that they're really taking on board how bad the traffic is in Morton Road now. I mean, it wasn't maybe even 2 years ago, but it's got worse. And it's going to get worse still because of the new properties that are being developed. And I think we ought to make sure we point this out to them.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that when they agreed the Morton Road development, they said that they weren't going to look at traffic, and they were going to monitor the traffic. I think it was a year after the properties had been built. So that's not useful for anybody who lives in Buckingham or come down that road. All right, Mark's still out. I know that he mentioned earlier that the owner signed an untrue declaration that the demolition hadn't begun, but he'd actually levelled the bungalow about 2 years ago. So on the planning website, he signed a document. So he's what Mark said is that he's done that fraudulently because there is no bungalow there. If members are happy, we'll move through them. But if Mark wants to come back to add anything, then I'm quite happy to take him, because I know that as vice chair, he's very involved in all of these. Okay, so where are we objecting to 6.4 with our with our comments that we're still not getting heard on? All right, 6.5 is 17 Westfields, single story. Oh, Mark, are you there? We can see you. Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, apologies everybody. Yesterday I had some Zooming with family, and then it decided to update itself, and since then it keeps crashing and freezing. So as you saw this morning this afternoon at our briefing, have you finished yet on 61 Morton Road?
Literally just about to move off. I did mention about your declaration bit that you found, but other than that,
yeah, I'm not opposing it, but could we please draw to the attention of Buckinghamshire Planning Authority that the applicant signed a declaration that work could not yet started, which is patently untrue, because the bungalow was demolished 2 years ago. So if we could please remind them of that, because I don't know if it's a criminal offence to do that, but they signed a declaration. To the best of our knowledge, the details given in this application are true.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so 17 Westfields, it's a single story rear extension. Any comments on this one? No? Paul?
I think we can, as far as I'm concerned, no objection.
I think Mark pointed out earlier that there's no notices on this application and all the rest of that are following. There's no yellow notices, so neighbours won't have seen this. So other than that, we're no objections to this. Correct? Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. 6.6 is 8 Market Square. It's roof retiling, like for like.
Yeah.
I'm happy with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Our next one is 10 Hilltop Avenue, 6.7. It's the fence again.
The retrospective.
Yeah. Anybody would like to comment on this one? Mark?
Yes, I'll raise it as the local member. Yeah, this application's come back for the 3rd time about the 1.8 metre board fence, which is retrospective from 2 years ago now. It's been turned down twice by Buckinghamshire Council Planning Department because it doesn't respect the neighbourhood. It's contrary to GP 35 and BE2. On the Aylesbury Vale plan, and then the unmade New Vale plan. So nothing's changed. All they're going to do is that they're talking about, apart from the front, they're going to move the large and overwhelming fence in slightly and then plant hedging to the same height. It's still going to cause a problem by changing the look of that whole part of the estate, and of course a problem for traffic emerging from the road alongside it. So I think we should continue to respond to it for the same reasons as the previous 2 refusals.
Yeah. Right. Thumbs up to oppose this application. Yeah. Majority. Thank you. Okay.
Abstention.
Yeah. No, Nina's got all of them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. 32 Nelson Street is our next one. They're new owners, and they looks good actually. The plans for this, it's quite nice to see it being done. Any comments? No. Oh, Paul.
No objections.
Okay.
I propose.
Yeah. Show quickly. Show no objections. Cool. Fab. Thank you. Right, we've got 15 Market Square next. 9 and 10. This is. Would anybody like to speak on this one? Oh no, this is the withdrawn one, isn't it? Yeah, it's been withdrawn, isn't it? This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 2 Chandos Close. Another fence.
Lisa.
Oh, sorry, Anthony. Yeah.
All I was going to say was that this afternoon's briefing, I was asked to inquire about the age of those buildings, even though we're not discussing it as an item. And I have had a response from Mr. Grimsdale. And with your permission, I will send Nina a copy of the email he sent, because it's reasonably long, but it will be tucked away, ready to discuss. And he like us, thinks that the buildings are older than are being suggested.
Thank you.
And I'll give you the detail, you know. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anthony. Appreciate that. Okay. Right. 2 Chandos Close fence. Mark.
Yeah, we've just dealt with 10 Hilltop Avenue. This is exactly the same situation. It's a dominant over-high fence which has been erected. They've applied for retrospective planning permission. Again, policies GP 35 and BE2 apply. It's an eyesore on the estate. This one has the added problem if it's right on the edge of the conservation area. It looks onto the conservation area.
Indeed. Okay, so we've Mark saying to oppose. Hands in the air to oppose. Oh, Carolyn, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to echo what Councillor Cole was saying there.
Okay.
It's really appalling that this mushroom of close board fencing is coming up around what should be open space public amenity land almost. And I think it was raised at our meeting, some question as to whether this was an actual land grab or whether it was in the ownership of the applicant. I don't know the answer to that, but it's certainly we certainly would object to its erection in the middle of the, well, opposite the conservation area and loss of the public open space.
Yeah.
Plus the close board fencing, honestly, I mean, it's such an eyesore. It's immediately off-putting and unwelcoming. It should be, perhaps the neighbourhood plan could address this and not allow close board fencing on the public highway.
Yeah, no, very good point. Yeah. All right. So we did have hands up to oppose this one, and we are opposing it. So hands were up. Thank you. Okay. Amended plans, the garage site on Pytal Crescent. Would anybody like to talk on this one? Anthony.
Yes, as I noted this afternoon, I'm quite disappointed in this, in as much as the principle is a jolly good idea. It's a fresh new way of dealing with what is, after all, quite an important social problem, but they seem to have made such a horlicks of it in the detail that it's doubly disappointing. Now, that's not planning reasons, but I like to make the point anyway.
No, you're right. And in Catherine's report, you can see that there's so many things that they could have answered that they didn't answer. For example, the bicycle store. They mention that the parking bay would be the owner of the bike storage would also own the parking bay, but that wasn't our point. The point was, if you've got a car parked there, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get a bicycle out, which, as Catherine then put in her report, that then you're going to, if it's a child, they're going to need an adult to move the car to be able to get their bicycle out. So they think that they've answered it, and they really haven't. And there's other things in there that they just haven't answered at all, with the trees being so close. You know, we're going to start getting applications for tree removals and pruning and whatnot. Mark, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm worried about the proximity of the trees immediately behind. They're going to be almost touching the property. So either the property is going to get damaged, the trees are going to get damaged, and we're going to finish up with all sorts of problems. There is still a risk of flooding because there's a brook behind there, which historically has flooded across where the garages are in the past. And the crime prevention issues are still an issue. They haven't really answered what Thames Valley Police have wanted. I mean, they're talking rather airy-fairily about having closed circuit television, etc. And they don't seem to think there's any problem about having dark spaces where youngsters might gather and smoke or exchange dodgy materials. The point is, of course, it isn't there at the moment. So until it is there, that can't happen. So I think, as Catherine made that point very well. So everything is really wrong with this at the moment, and they haven't answered a lot of our questions. So I think we need to continue to oppose it.
Yeah, I mean, even go like their explanation on the car, the bay sizes, they say 2.8 meters in their answer, but in actual fact, later on, some of the bays are going to be 2.4 meters, so they're not even going to be of standard. So, right, hands up for us to continue opposing this application. Carrie, thank you. All right, this isn't for consultation, it's the Willow, but we've had enough responses for that one, so that can go through. Sorry. 7.1, planning decisions. Would anybody like to speak on any of these? Mark?
Yeah, the application that is refused, which is halfway down the second page, 40 Kingfisher Road, enlarging garage roof and dormers. We didn't object to it, but Buckinghamshire Planning did, and I think we should take note of their new reasons for objections. It's overly dominant, it fails to respect the roof form, it's overbearing, it reduces the light levels for neighbours and reduces amenities. Now, this is something we normally have been told we can't really take into consideration as a planning objection, but they have used those very words to refuse this. So I think we need to take note when we're looking at future applications.
Yeah, agreed. And not just us, but our Shire councillors, who've often told us that we're wrong, or we don't have any business commenting on such things. And you know, we do have a business commenting on such things. It's just a shame that we know through the meeting that Paul and Catherine had that we're not going to get any training till May next year on planning matters. That's a massive shame. Robin?
I think it's interesting what Councillor Cole said, and I think we should take note of it and
you said that
whether it's a change in direction. Shire Council shouldn't be suggesting that what you say is wrong. They are not planners. They are just councillors who just wear a different hat. They're no more qualified than anyone else. It is disappointing here the training is not going to take place, but I do think that maybe it could be suggested this might be the start of a change of emphasis going on within the planning department on the way they determine these applications. One swallow doesn't make a summer, but those things, when we've raised them historically, have always been told were not good enough reasons. That's why they were never brought up. So maybe we should just, see whether it builds up a consistent response in the planning department, and this isn't just a one-off. There is a new head of strategic planning, officer now, so maybe they're having a different view on these things based upon planning law. So watch it. As
Mark mentioned as well, that we need to take note of their comments definitely on this. Okay. 7.2 Planning Inspectorate is Appendix C. Would anybody like to talk about this item? Mark?
Sorry, it's me again. Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for very comprehensive report on this. You've added notes, and I think those notes should be put into our response. We have a chance to respond until December the 30th, and that's a very clear case you've laid out, Catherine, and I think we should endorse that. Paul, if I might ask you, when we made that objection, two of the points there were, one, that the town clerk be asked to investigate Station House for historic building listing, and two, that the walnut tree on the site should be considered for protection. Have you got any further with that?
Not at the moment, no. I'll report back to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Robin?
This has been a long going, got a lot of history with it, and Catherine's put a lot of hours into various different reports in this application, and there's been lots of inconsistencies in this application throughout. One of the things that I always felt with this application is that there wasn't conformity between all parties. I see it's gone for non-determination appeal. We should watch this very carefully, because if it ends up being found on non-determination, one of the things which I thought councillors stressed was the amount of accommodation in there not being suitable for the site, and many other aspects. So I think, through you, Chairman, do we get to make any representations on on this, because there were some elements which Councillor Cole mentioned within the Buckingham Neighbourhood plan at some meetings past. I can't recall what they were, but he did mention some, you know, elements to do with it, and where this sits in conjunction to the land behind it, i.e. being the allotments. I do believe, if I'm correct, the allotments adjacent to it. So, or not with it, may even be part of it. So I do think through the town clerk, because we provide allotments as a consultee, is there some knock on to us as a council? I don't think there is, because I do believe these are private allotments and nothing we have to do with, but it's one of the few things that we as a council have a legal responsibility to provide.
Well, what would you like to say?
I don't see any risk to us being able to meet our legal obligation. So, and even if there was, it wouldn't be appropriate to do that through planning.
As long as we're not prejudicing ourselves, but they say, well, you know, you're commenting on it because you know, that's fine. Thank you.
So, Catherine.
They are privately owned by New College, and we've never had a right of nomination of any allotment holders. It's always been privately dealt with by New College. They are going to slightly modify the entrance to the allotments, but they're not touching the land at all. It's just that the way they're going to do the access means that they've got to regrade so that people can get their vehicles into the allotment area.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so if anybody's got anything that you want to add to this document, as Catherine's put, cut off is 30th of December. Otherwise, can we have a show of hands to agree to include everything that Catherine's put in her report, send off, please? Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, 8.1. Received notes of a meeting held with officers and our officers. Catherine and Paul went along to this. Well, not went along to it, but attended it. So would anybody like to ask any questions of either officer? Nobody? No? Okay. Well, thank you both for going. Not going, but attending. It's definitely useful to read that they're taking on board your comments that you put forth, and seemed surprised at some of the things that had been happening. Catherine, did you want to add anything to this report?
No, it's nice to have a positive reaction. And they certainly, yes, they were slightly surprised at the way things were going, and they're looking into it, and I hope things will improve.
And that's really positive to hear as well. So it's good. Robin.
One of the things from memory I think was discussed, and I think it may have been premised in the report, was the fact that stuff disappearing off the website before it's had chance to, and when another application goes on. Now, if both Catherine and Paul have managed to bring that to some sort of consistency, because I understand that Catherine has to quickly record this information before it disappears, because you can't refer back to it. If that's going to stop happening, that will save us hours when looking at something, because you can't do the historicals if it's already been removed. Am I correct in that? If I'm wrong, please point out I am.
They're looking into why it's happening. But Mr. Oftenoni agreed that this was not practice. You know, it may be something, you know, that it's to do with the brain capacity of the website or something. But now that they've got so many more areas to consider in the same site, but they're working on the website anyway to change it with the Ministry of Communities and Local Government. So that'll be yet another iteration of the website that won't work to start with, and we'll have to kick it into shape, but never mind.
Or at least you're there to kick it, Catherine. That's all that matters. And we're all behind you. Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, thanks again for these notes. Interesting reading. 8.2. That's over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is the Buckinghamshire Council Parishes Liaison Meeting, the first one we've had. It's on December the 15th. I attended along with Lisa and Catherine. It was originally scheduled to be 1 hour, but with 104 attendees, many of them wanting to raise issues, it ran to almost 2 hours in the end. We were introduced to the officers now running planning and enforcement and their functions. That's very useful for all of us, and I think if those that could be sent out to all members just so they know what we're dealing with. But what I felt was the meeting highlighted was the divide between North and South Bucks and our very different planning needs and enforcement needs. North Bucks has always been very proactive on commenting on planning applications, much more so than the South. And this is something which I hope the Buckinghamshire Council, which inherited a large backlog of undetermined applications from the Vale of Aylesbury, will recognise rather than dismiss our views as they're doing at the moment. I made a statement to the meeting so that other towns and parishes could hear our concerns about the new planning process. It's what we had in our motion at the last planning committee. I said that Buckingham Town Council still has grave reservations about the new planning process and the erosion of our role as town and parish councils to oppose an application without it being vetted as to whether or not it should go before the relevant committee. And I said we are challenging this decision. Warren White, who was at the meeting, came back, said, in fact, the information in the Constitution is being reviewed. However, it's not a quick process, as the Constitution is a legal document. More information will be shared about this when it's available, but please continue to send your comments through. The majority of questions at the meeting, which filled 11 pages of notes, that's how many were asked, were about planning and the tight response deadlines which parishes are given, and also about stricter enforcement. And some people were asking that more criminal proceedings be taken where it's appropriate. That was my notes. I don't know if Catherine or Lisa have anything to add to that.
No, I think you covered it. I don't know if you did, Catherine. Yep.
They did note that actual enforcement actions against naughty people are up 200% on what they were before April. So they are making a determined effort.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Eventually people will learn, I suppose, but
yeah. Thanks for that, Catherine.
Circulate documents from the meeting for the next agenda, because obviously we missed this agenda because of the date of the meeting. So I was going to pop them into this slot in the agenda next time with a link so that people can read them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Can I just make a note that we've lost Nina, and she's our minute clerk, and she's not anywhere here. Can you hold on for a second, Robin? We need our minute clerk to be here.
We can, between myself and Catherine, I'm sure we can manage.
You sure?
I have sent a copy of what I've just read out to Nina, so she has that information already.
Okay. I mean, we are being recorded, so you can always go back. But as long as you were fine and legal, I'm happy to carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. At the last full council of Buckinghamshire Council on the 9th of December, the element of the Constitution which premised in a small part of it, revised to the Constitutions, came up, and the concerns around parish and town councils but not being properly consulted was in that paperwork, which was agreed to be noted and was going to go to a group of councillors made up from the audit committee and another committee, Rag Audits. I think it was something like that, and they were going to go and review this and come back. But I do think that noting Councillor Mark Smith, Cole, efforts in this and taking with attention, we should follow up noting the agreed note to move this forward and ask for a time frame around this, because the fact that they've actually noted it and it's been noted at council as an action, it didn't actually give us a time frame. Yeah. So I think it's a reasonable question. The town clerk can find that quite easy. It was early on the agenda, I spoke first on it and Councillor White spoke second. There was no other councillor spoke on it. We were both in agreement, you know, that it was a good thing that it was included. But I do think it didn't give a time frame around it. No, if they say they're going to be an ongoing review and nothing changes, you know, that's important. If anybody's given a time frame anywhere about when it review, I know they say it will be, you know, in the council post the election, but of course that might not be the same councillors who are reviewing it after April or May. If we have an election, if we have an election, it might be somebody else who looks at it. So I think a time frame to progress it needs to be agreed.
Yeah, no, you make a good point, and you're right, it wasn't answered in the webcast. Mark, you had your hand up. Did Robin? Yep, go.
I'm going to just stress again was what I read out, that Councillor White has already stated the information in the Constitution will be reviewed. However, it's not a quick process as the Constitution is a legal document. And I don't think we can start pushing for timeframes at this point. I think what Warren gave an honest answer to that.
Yeah, no, it's just unhelpful to us, isn't it? That's a problem.
I can come back.
Robin, what would you like to say?
Well, I had an advantage over you, Councillor Cole, as I was present at the meeting when it was discussed, and they said it was an evolving document. This won't be the only consultation on the Constitution that they will be considering. There'll be others because the Constitution is a live document, and the council's got lots of responsibilities outside planning. So when I say I think we should premise for a time frame around this, because it's something that I'm really concerned may get washed down the sink. We've achieved. I took it to cabinet and raised the questions at cabinet about this. I then went to council with a motion about this very matter. I've put a stake in the ground to see that it was moved forward. The fact that it appeared at the subsequent council to be amended, I thought was a good thing, because they took on board the amendment and the motion to amend the Constitution. So those were actions as a councillor I took. So when I say I have no time frame, if they come back and say it will be within the time frame of the new council, we need a time frame. We don't have an open-ended thing on this. It's a very important that parishes do return to the dispatch box on behalf of their constituents, because it's not equitable, is it? And it's not been successful, as we all agree, asking shire councillors to call things in to enable you to have a voice. So that's why I'm going to time for. I don't disagree with what you said at that meeting, but having attended 3 separate meetings as a shire councillor, I probably have a slightly different view, and having invested the time into pursuing those matters, I want a time frame agreed.
We'll ask. We can Paul can write to them, note that the Constitution is going to be under consultation and reviewed. We would like to know a time frame if they have one. Is members in agreement that we write to them on that? Yep. Thank you. Okay. Right. 8.3. Receive news of Buckinghamshire Council new documents and other information from council members present. We did have Tim, but we've lost Tim. So while I go to you, Robin, Mark, can you carry on for me for a minute? I need to visit the ladies.
Okay, quite happy to. Thank you
very much.
Yeah, Robin, please, could you update us?
Yeah, you will be aware on council business which relates to housing, and something that this committee talks about. At the last council meeting on the 9th of December, I submitted a motion to the council seeking them to review and return back to being social housing provider, and that means council house provider. That motion was agreed with an amendment which was to not preclude any other form of social housing provider stroke independent provider within the consultation, which was a reasonable amendment in the sense that I was going there with one principle, and the amendment probably enriched it in the sense that they're going to go away and consider this and bring back a future report to a cabinet meeting. So I think that's quite a success that we've got social housing stroke key worker housing in this short-lived period of the unelected Buckinghamshire Council, which of course I'm always conscious when I sit here, we are all elected. And when I sit there, we are unelected to be in our positions and thereby gravity. So I think that's probably a good achievement to get that through, and how that progresses, we'll get a future report at Cabinet, which I hope will premise council house building and key worker building, because it is important we address this. There's no way out of it addressing the inaffordability of Buckinghamshire. Apart from that, I've been to lots of other things, but that's the only thing relevant to this committee.
Thank you, Robin. Howard's not here either, I noticed. So any questions for Robin on that? No, thank you. 8.4 to discuss applications to be called in and as decided above, and which Buckinghamshire councillor wishes to volunteer for this. Thank you. Lisa's back in the chair.
Thank you so much for that, Mark. And thank you, Robin, for your update. Okay, so what are we calling in?
61 Morton Road.
Okay. If it helps, you can open Appendix E to see who has called in what applications.
There is an update to that, in that Councillor White has agreed to call in the villas.
Ah, brilliant. Good news. Okay. So if you've got Appendix E open, would anybody like to suggest a Shire councillor for the Morton Road development? John?
Well, is it worth trying Tim again?
Yeah.
I mean, he does at least have to drive that way to go home, so he might have an interest in raising it, maybe.
Yeah, can't hurt to ask.
And 10 Hilltop.
Robin?
Howard?
It hasn't got the 9 flats on here, which is probably, was it on the other side, Catherine? The Morton Road ones, we called those in.
That was last meeting, Robin.
Yeah, I was just, you've got who on this, it says who's called what in.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't print that off for myself.
We had a series of correspondence where,
yes, it's 20/3950.
yeah, I've called that in. So
right,
thank you.
Just because that was an action we came out of last meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah,
thank you. All right, suggestion for Howard. Yep.
Hilltop Avenue and 2 Chandos Road, we asked the same councillor to call in because they're identical reasons.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It can't be Councillor Mills because he refused before on that, so perhaps we could ask Councillor Clare. I don't know if that helps, if it's down his end of town, isn't it?
Well, I was going to suggest Howard, because he lives up that way in Hilltop, doesn't he?
he knows where it is, certainly.
Councillor Clare is on the other side of Buckingham, so he won't necessarily know that.
That's what I'm saying about we're teaming it with Chandos Road, Robin. That's what we're saying.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
I have to say that Councillor Clare hasn't replied to our request from last meeting yet.
Okay, I agree with John then. Okay. Ask Howard. Yeah.
There's a lot of dashes next to Charlie's name on this list, isn't there?
Yeah.
Pytle Crescent.
Right, Pytle Crescent. There's no point asking Simon Cole because he doesn't respond and it hasn't called a single thing in.
And Tim has turned it down already.
Yeah.
Robin?
Sorry, Mark.
Tim Mills.
Tim's, he's already said.
I mean, these are amended plans, and he said.
Sorry, Catherine, start again.
Well, these are amended plans, and he turned down the originals.
Yeah, so maybe not a good choice.
How about Robin? You know the area, Robin.
Which back do you want me to call in?
The new flats behind Pytle Crescent.
I mean, I can.
You know where they're going to, they've got garage court behind the Crescent flats on Western Avenue.
Yeah.
You go up, there's a big green on your right, and then there's flats all around it. There's 36 flats there with 12 parking spaces, and then round the back where there's 20 garages, they want to knock them down and put modular flats up.
Can I say that I'm happy to call it in? But I have got quite a number here, and I might end up being at one planning meeting where I stood on both sides of the table calling these applications in and hoping to speak on one. So all these are likely to come through. I'm happy to do it, but can we please just try one of the other councillors first? If they come back, Catherine will communicate to me that no one's willing to do it. And at that point, I'll cut in. I don't see why I should carry all of them.
No.
Councillor White's been carrying his share of the burden. We all get the same remunerations in our monthly stifle payment, so I don't see why they shouldn't carry some of it. I'm happy to do it because it's important that the town council is represented, but I do want them to be given the opportunity first, because they don't serve on the same amount of committees I do either, so they must have more time than I do.
But this is a problem, Robin, that you know too well, is that we ask the other councillors and they either don't respond, they come back with flimsy comments that they're not going to call it in because we're wrong and they're right, and it's utterly frustrating.
Well, Chairman, I'm happy to do it, but please try someone else first. The other thing I'll say is, when I called in the last application, I never put a for or against it. I just called it to committee because I wanted to speak on it. I never passed I didn't put an oppose or agree on it. You don't have to. You're just, what you are is an envoy for the town council. I think they're getting confused with their role in this. Their role is to be an envoy for the town council to allow you to speak. To deny you the right to speak is terrible.
But I think it's in the wording that it says that they have to agree to then call it in. I think it's the wording that they're saying that they don't agree with us, and that's why they're not willing to call it in. Well, that's some of the comments that we've had from Simon and Tim in the past.
No, they don't have to agree with you. You don't even have to agree with the reasons. I could call a decision in for you and vote for it if you were against it quite easily, if that was the way it went, in my opinion, at the meeting, because I'll be in the meeting, I'll be led by the report in the meeting. What's happening here is people aren't carrying their burden and shouldering it, and that's wrong. I'm happy to do it, but please, can you just try first? And I've got no slight on Councillor White. He's for a cabinet member.
You're Warren.
There's no slight on the man at all.
No, that's what we're saying. It's you and Warren that are doing your jobs for us. It's the others that are holding everything back. Mark.
Yeah, the problem here is that Shire councillors need educating about the call-in process. They don't generally understand it. Robin is very good at it. He understands it. The others don't. And as we've mentioned, one councillor in particular who has twice refused to call in a plan because he said there's no planning reasons to oppose it. And both times it's been refused by planning officers on planning grounds, planning reasons. So there is some education needed here. But in the meantime, rather than keep loading Robin up, let's ask Charlie Clare on this one, because it's on the edge of town. It's an important site. It overlooks Stowe. And let's see if Charlie would be happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I'm happy if he comes back and says no, or doesn't respond.
Stand by, Robin.
I'll be standby.
Thank you.
It's not that I don't want to do it. I will do it.
No, we get that, Robin.
I've got a lot to do and a lot more committees than they attend.
No, we totally get your reasons. Like, that's fine, and I appreciate all your hard work, Anthony.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I was going to say exactly the same as Councillor Cole. I think Councillor Clare could do this one quite easily. And secondly, could we drop a line to Warren White or somebody like that, asking if county councillors could actually have some sort of training or a crib sheet or whatever level to explain what they're supposed to be doing with all these call-ins. I mean, I thought that that's a responsibility of the county to make sure the county councillors are fulfilling their obligations correctly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. So 8.5, happy to note Appendix E.
Noted.
Yep. Thank you very much. Right, 9, Shire Council committee meetings cancelled and no Buckingham applications. Item 10, consultation.
Another one.
Yep, another one. Oh. So the response date for this is 28th of January, to be considered fully at our next meeting. Summary of the questions is attached with Appendix F. Has any of you looked at this, and do you have any comments?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
No? Oh, John.
It's not as heavyweight as the white paper.
It's
But it has got some bizarre
pretty dense, though, I would say, is my first impression from looking at it. And it requires quite a lot of understanding of the embedded comments and so on. You're probably got to read the whole report to make sense of it. It seems to me. I think that I would have a job answering any of these questions without having read the whole thing. Is it worth? I'm wondering, Catherine, given your wonderful wisdom, whether you could give us a stab at it first, that we could take a look at the next meeting. Do you have the time to do that? If you don't, that's fine. I understand.
Well, on the grounds that I'm not going anywhere this Christmas and nobody's coming to me, I shall have loads of time.
I don't. Yeah, but you might want to watch a film on TV or something at some point.
I'm actually taking time off all next week.
Oh.
But that is because I've got other things, books I want to read, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the way of that, obviously. But if
the way we did the white paper worked very well, with different councillors coming back, having filled in the boxes, and me collating it. That worked very well. But yes, I will see if I can at least provide you with a summary with pointers in it.
Thank you very much. Carolyn, you had your hand up.
Thank you.
Carolyn, you had your hand up.
Yes, thanks. Yes, thank you. I was just going to say, like John there, I thought the technicalities of the questions were really beyond my comprehension, certainly this period. But Roger Newell is going to put forward a brief outline of change of use policies that he understands. So there might be something from the Buckingham Society we can discuss as well next meeting.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, if he does send anything through, would you share it with the committee? Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, item 11, section 106 quarterly update. You've read that. Does anybody have any comments on that one? No. Robin.
When we discussed about consultation with section 106s and parishes, this is still not the responses to the questions still are not very satisfactory. We're not we asked the question, didn't we, about Milton Keynes, and I think John done some research on it and brought it to us, and it's still very unsatisfactory. I think if they're not going to change the way that they consult with us as parishes,
they're not going to change their way.
We're going to come in as consultees.
Yep.
I think it might be worth our time writing to Chesham, Amersham and other councils to ask what what involvement they've got with Section 106 agreements, other town and parish councils, because I've got a gut feeling that our non-involvement at early stages is a North Buckinghamshire problem. And if there is some inconsistency in the way that this is being applied across Buckinghamshire, I think it's better that it's found out through this portal of communication before I go charging off on it. Because my gut feeling is, listening to other town clerks, people I've spoke to, and that's only a gut feeling, is that they get more involvement than we do on Section 106.
Very possibly. Paul, have you got any information on this about other towns having more of an input than we do?
I think it's historically been very different in the districts. And talking to people in South Bucks, the impression I've got was that they knew less than we do. Oh. So I think the grass is always a bit green. Obviously, Wycombe's had Sill, so that's again a slightly different context in terms of the district council bits of S106. But I would also say I think things are improving a bit at the moment. I think it is on the list of things that, with the other things in planning, there seem to be some more positive signals about. And I think the next few months will tell on that. Okay. So
you're doing a bit of a watch this space, are you, on that one?
That'd be my suggestion. Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't believe
the fact. Hold on a minute, Robin. The fact that the Shire Council adopted a different way of us calling in planning applications, because that's what they did down south. I think if they are doing anything different where they have more involvement over Section 106, that should be adopted here, like vice versa. Okay. All right. Quickly, Robin.
Well, they are. It's premised in the answer given verbally by the cabinet member. Those areas down there which have got a neighbourhood plan are entitled to 15% of the SIL. So it is different, and we mustn't lose sight of that. Many people in Buckingham, including the Buckingham Society and volunteers, put a lot of effort supporting the town council and getting a neighbourhood plan. And one of the reasons for actually getting a neighbourhood plan was we knew SIL was coming along, and we would have more say over it. I think asking them those sort of questions, maybe it's something that Paul and I should talk about offline about how we pursue this, rather than come up with a definite answer here now. It could be that Paul and I know the same things, but we're reading it completely different. That wouldn't surprise me.
No, it wouldn't surprise me either.
They are opinionated.
Okay. All right. On to item 12, tree felling applications.
Noted.
Yeah. Enforcement. Do we have any breaches that anybody would like to report? Mark?
Yeah, again, the car with the roof signboard is still on the verge of the A421 Bletchley roundabout. It's now coming up to 2.5 months it's been there. I mean, can we not do anything about this? It hasn't been moved, and surely this is contrary to trunk road advertising regulations, apart from anything else.
Paul, have you got any thoughts? Because we have approached them before over this, and they kind of came back and said that there wasn't any issue. Not in those words, but have you got any thoughts?
That's my recollection, that we couldn't find a genuine hook to be able to challenge them on, unless Catherine can recall anything more helpful.
No, they just shrugged their shoulders and said it doesn't matter,
Yeah, that was my recollection. Right, Robin, just before taking you, can I take Andy, because he's not spoken at all this meeting? Andy?
Can't it be done on a safety thing, being on a roundabout and a distraction? Paul?
I think that's a judgment that highways have to take, and their view is not particularly compared to all the other signs and other things that there are going on.
So anybody can do it, cars all over the place to advertise. Basically, that's
Yeah.
what they. And I thought we had a very similar problem on airframe signs in town. You know, there can be thousands of them. This very similar argument that you can have thousands of cars all over the place advertising.
Yeah, well, it's a mockery to us charging companies for the roundabout signage, because if that's all they need to do is like buy a second-hand car for a couple of £100 and put a sign on it, that's a huge mockery to everything that we do here, trying to keep the place. And it's just such it's horrible. Robin, what would you like to say? You're muted.
Well, I'll go back again then. I'm conscious of what Councillor Murray says and about the highway distraction. What can I please have the correspondence that we sent to whoever we sent it to?
Yeah, I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
I'm going to follow this up now and ask for a case to be raised on it. See whether that, and I'll add some things to it just to make sure it doesn't read very well. Of my own, and because I do think that we've got the problem that there's a van and advertising appearing in the lay-by opposite Aldi now, on and off with advertisement on it. It's just drawn in the lane and parked there, a vehicle I noticed the other day. The road isn't, they want to pay for advertising, let them pay for advertising and do it properly. Yeah. Not just like this. I can't mention that because it's not what we're complaining about, but if I can have the stuff sent to me, I'll follow it up, and I'll copy Catherine back into it, and then she can chuckle about my spellings because they're bound to be tremendous.
But I think between me, Catherine, and Paul, we'll try and find the emails and go back to what we were told when we first.
I'll raise it as an enforcement case because you can't keep going around in circles.
Yeah. I mean, if they're really going to take their notice, perhaps we all put our cars up there with notices on saying, please do something about this. It's just, it's not right.
I was thinking of putting one up there during the week of May with a notice on it. Do you think they'll want that moved?
It's not a bad idea. Okay. Item 14, matters to report. Does anybody have anything? Mark.
I've got 4 here. I'm going to take you straight back to the A421 Bletchley Road roundabout. The new traffic signals, also known as Carolyn's Crossing, they've had a sign up now for 5 years saying new traffic signals. Also on the same post, Nightingale Rise developers on the same file. I just sent a photograph to every one of those. I think Catherine's taken note already, but just to report, the bollard in Well Street, which is in the action list, that was reported on February the 20th. It's a temporary bollard because the other had been knocked down. It's still there 11 months later. And I reported at the last meeting about the bridge at Vorton Mill over the A421, A413 was collapsing on the southbound side. It's now collapsing on the northbound side as well. I've reported it to Fix My Street 5 times this year, the southbound one. I've now reported the northbound one, but nothing's happening, and there is going to be a major problem here soon. The good news is that after a year, the flashing lollipop crossing signs at the top of Stratford Road have now been switched off outside school hours.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The battery's probably gone flat.
All right, John, Robin, in that order, please.
Nothing to report, but it does seem as if the hedgerow outside the Vorton Mill has been cut back. I've not walked along there, but I drove past it the other day. It does seem to be pared back a bit, so that's good news.
Good, fabulous, thank you. Robin.
To support Councillor Mark Cole, I raised a question about that bridge because it's an arterial route, and I went over it again the other day, and he's right.
Yeah.
I think it's being treated. Buckingham should stop being treated like we've got B roads in Buckingham. and these roads are A roads, not
Yeah.
B roads, and they should get the investment in them. It took us nearly 5 years to get the roundabouts repaired. Do you remember we raised them 4 or 5 years ago? And eventually they got repaired. And once they got repaired, councillors always love a photograph with a roundabout when it's been mended. If it's going wrong, they don't. So, you know, so I think that maybe we should, with an election coming up, do a press release about our concern about the arterial route of the A422 and how much councillors have used Fix My Streets, but it seems to be like elastoplaster and doesn't happen. I'm sure then it will attract attention of the local members, and as day follows night, some tarmac will be thrown into those holes with some immense haste, and a photograph will be produced thereafter, and everyone's conscience will be fulfilled, won't they?
What I'll do is I'll send a doodle poll invite out. We'll all meet up there. We'll have a photograph pointing to the damage.
Yeah, shall we? or could we do it like we could all go there and do a selfie and do a councillors pointing at a pothole?
That's literally what I just said.
Well, I don't understand the technology behind it.
Catherine.
Yes, I think it's more likely to be structural weakness on the bridge, I have to say, now that it's going both ways. But I have reported it with pictures to direct bridges and bypass Fix My Street.
Okay.
So we'll see.
When did you do that? Sorry.
Last week.
Okay.
I had to wait for Mark to do me a picture. I'm not going out in the pouring rain and taking pictures on bridges. But no, I'm like I said, they won't be in the office necessarily. They'll be doing other things. So, but I thought if I go straight to the bridges division, then it might.
Yeah.
He's going to come out and look at it and then report back to us. So.
Can I see the correspondence, Catherine? I'll have another go at that one and all.
Well, I think we give him a little while longer to come back to us on it.
Yeah.
And if
we might be able to start fishing off the bridge soon when there's a hole big enough. We could drop a long line down and see if we could catch anything.
Right, Carolyn, before we move on, did the Buckingham Society have anything to report for us to report?
No, we didn't. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. All right, excellent. Thank you. I've got no chairman's items. Not unless Catherine's got anything for me. No. Okay.
No, you've had everything already.
Thank you. Paul, have you got anything for me?
Nothing at all, no.
Okay, thank you. Date next meeting, Monday 18th of January at 7 o'clock. Thank you, Nina. You've been an absolute star this year. As always, much appreciate your hard work and diligence. Catherine, same with you. Thank you very, very much for everything you've done this past year. Have a lovely Christmas and a happy new year. Paul, same to you. You're the best town clerk ever. Seriously. You're just wonderful. You're a brilliant manager. You're just fantastic. All I hear are glowing reports from members of staff about you, and working, as a town councillor with you. I couldn't ask for anything more. Honestly, you're wonderful. So have a lovely Christmas and have a good year. You're very welcome.
Can I just echo on behalf of the Buckingham Society our thanks too to Nina, Catherine, Paul as well. They are such a tremendous support for the town, and the query is too small. They really are most grateful thanks, and happy Christmas to you all.
And I have to support that. And if I was Prime Minister, I would give them the 2%.
Nina, would you be able to record our thanks, please, Nina, to all three of you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Very much. Have a lovely.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.
And thank you, Lisa.